Hey guys, it's Aniket. Today I'm going to be showing you how to use n8n to scrape local newsletter ad sales leads. So to start, let's talk about local newsletters. So here on the screen, you can see this database I've put together of 572 local newsletters. And by the time this video is published, probably going to be higher. And so these local newsletters are primarily advertising businesses. And so if we look at this local newsletter here, for example, the Naptown Scoop, we see right up here in the top section, it says together with Morabito Family Dental. And so this newsletter is getting paid by this dental company. Now, I actually wrote an article scraping all the advertisers of this newsletter from 2020 to 2024. And I found that these advertisers are in all sorts of categories. So these are like the top 5 categories of advertisers: food and dining, media and news, nonprofit, and charity. But in fact, most of the money, meaning the advertisers that tend to occupy that top spot where we just saw that dental company, tend to be in one of a few categories: real estate, medical and healthcare, financial services, food and dining, and home services. And if we dig into the particular advertisers, like which particular advertisers are in that top spot, we find that it's really just 6 or 7 advertisers that take up over half these top spots in the local newsletter. So what that means is that if you want to sell local newsletter ads and you don't want to waste your time chasing down like every mom and pop restaurant in your town, then what you should really be doing is focusing on advertisers in one of a few categories. And so what I'm going to show you today is an automation which scrapes Google Maps in your town for some category of advertiser and returns to you all of the leads with their contact details in a CSV file. And so let me show you here what the workflow looks like. So there's going to be a form which you submit with certain parameters. I'll show you the form. It looks like this. So you put in a city, you put in a level of zoom. I'm going to explain what that means, but that's like a level of zoom in Google Maps. You put in the search terms, so like orthodontist and dentist, and then you can choose a maximum number of results you want. As I'm going to show you, more results cost more money. Now, once you put in that form, those parameters are going to get submitted to our scraper, which I'm going to get into more detail, but it uses a service called Apify. That scraper is going to function, and then once the scraper is finished, we need to download from Apify the results that we just scraped. Next, there's going to be a cleaning process that we go through. So I've written some Python code in a Python node here in Apify to do so. And finally, you'll get a clean CSV. So just to show you what the final results are going to look like, they'll look something like this. So we'll get a list of results, their address, their ratings. Like this stuff is all just coming from Google Maps. But then importantly, you get their phone number, their Facebook, and you can see over here, we also get emails. And this isn't perfect. I'm going to explain ways that in future videos, I'm going to make this even better. But this is a great start for you to go out and start to do ad sales outreach. All right. So let's dig in a little bit into the scraper, how it works, and how you'll be able to use this scraper. So first, let me explain what Apify is. So let me go over here. Apify is a marketplace of scrapers. And the way Apify works is that each of these scrapers, so we can see here an Apollo scraper, a TikTok scraper, an Instagram scraper. The way each of these scrapers work is that there's one of two options. Either you pay per usage with these scrapers, or you have to pay a fixed monthly fee and then also pay for usage. It just depends on the particular scraper. Now, the scraper we're going to use is this one, which is the Google Maps scraper. And this one is just pay per usage. So the cost is going to be around $6 per 1,000 results. Now, the way Apify works, you get $5 of free credits just for joining. So for most of you, if you want to get started with getting ad sales leads just off Apify, you'll be able to get about 800 or so leads, which is pretty good to start. But I recommend paying for a subscription. I pay for a subscription and I get my use and value out of it. Now, these Apify scrapers themselves, you need to have some way to interact with the Apify scraper from an outside system. So the outside system that we are using is n8n. Now, what n8n is basically a low-code automation tool. So if you've heard of Zapier or Make, n8n is in this class of tools. And personally, I'm very comfortable writing code, so I don't use n8n that much. But for you guys in my audience, I know a lot of you want to be able to make these automations without writing code. And so in the description, you're going to find a link to an article where you can download the full workflow and then put it into your own instance of n8n. So let me talk about that, how you can use n8n yourself. Broadly, there's two options. One, you can self-host n8n, meaning you have your own server and then n8n is installed on that server. That's how I use it. Or you can pay for it. So we go here to n8n pricing and we see there's two options. You're probably not going to pay annually. So the minimum price for you is going to be right here, $24 per month, or on this pro plan, $60 per month. So should you pay for it as a local newsletter operator or just a newsletter operator? I think so. I think it's worth it. I think that there's quite a lot you can do with it. And I'm going to be building out a whole series of articles and videos showing you what you can do with n8n. I do recommend getting a subscription. So, okay, we have Apify and then we have n8n, and we're going to do something with this. So back here, this is the workflow. And so we have a form submission, which is sending parameters to the Apify Google Maps scraper. Now, that's not enough. You can't just send some set of parameters to Apify. You also need to authenticate with Apify, which means you need to create an API key with Apify. Let me show you how to do that. We're back here at Apify. You go to settings and then you go to API and integrations. And you'll see here that we have a whole set of API keys. So some of these I've already created for other situations, but you should have probably an API key that's already available right there. And so what you would do is go here, copy the API key, and then you go back to n8n, and you'd go here, I think, go to settings, whoops, not there, go to overview, excuse me, you should go here, go to create credential, and then you look up Apify API. You go continue, and then you put your API key here and click save. And so we see here that this one, I'm not going to save it because I already have one, will be called Apify account 2 when saved. And so the way that you use that is in this workflow, there's these two steps that interact with Apify. There's the actual Google Maps scraper, and then there's this download from Apify step. So what you do is you double click on it, and right here where it says Apify API Key connection, you would need to select that credential that you just created. And so that's how you're going to authenticate from n8n with Apify. Now, let me go back. I'm going to talk again about the Apify Google Maps scraper. So whenever you have an API, and Apify is just a marketplace of APIs, you need to call that API with certain arguments. Now, this scraper is not very well documented in terms of how you need to provide arguments to the scraper, but I've figured it out so you don't need to. And I've made it so that most of the parameters that you need to pass, so this is like right here, is what the input looks like. I've already kind of decided what the parameters are that need to pass, and I've made it so that the form that you fill out automatically passes the parameters that do need to change depending on who is using it. So I'm not going to go into the details of every single parameter here. Some of them will determine the amount of information that is scraped by this scraper, but that's just in general how it works. And so I've set some of those other parameters to false because they may scrape other things like reservation details for if the place we're scraping is a restaurant. That's not important to you as a local newsletter owner who wants to get ad sales leads. So let's go back here to the form, and I had it here. Yeah. This is what the form looks like, and I've left some notes here as kind of a tip for how these should work. And so this right here, this nominatum OpenStreetMap is the underlying database that Google Maps uses. So let's look up something. Let's see Chicago in here and just do a search. Okay, as you can see, there's this particular string, Chicago, Cook County, Illinois, United States. So that's actually what you want to put in here under city. So whatever it is, whatever the area is in which you need to do your search for your market, whatever city that is, you should put this string if you want to have the most accurate results in terms of the scraper searching in the right geographic area. So let's go over here. Here we have Google Maps, and if you look in this in the URL, you can see this parameter that says 12.26z. So let's change that to 16, and then like it goes in, and if I change it to 19, like it goes in even more. And so this is the zoom parameter here that we're setting in Apify. And what this zoom parameter does is it determines the units in which the scraper is going to search for whatever search term it is that we set across the entire grid for whatever city it is that you choose. And so if you choose a very high zoom, I think you can go up to 21, then you're going to get every single dentist or orthodontist in your city, but it's just going to take forever. It'll take a really long time. Whereas if you choose a really low zoom, like 3, then the grid is going to be like the whole world. And so the search will occur really quickly, but you're not going to get an exhaustive set of results because Google Maps doesn't give very many results when you're that zoomed out. So I suggest choosing like 17, 18, or 19, and you can experiment with it. It depends on how densely populated your city is. If you're in New York City looking for pizza restaurants or Italian restaurants, obviously you're going to want a denser zoom. Lastly, search terms. You can search for multiple things at a time. I recommend just searching for one thing at a time. And we have this max results parameter. So that when you're sure that you've nailed it and you're ready to get everything, you can just set that to like 9999. But let me go back. So you go through this step, and let's actually do this. So we're going to start a test. As you can see, let's go here. Yeah, let's try this. I'm going to see if I can grab that. Yeah, very good. Evanston, Illinois, where I went to college. Let's put it at Zoom 16. Let's just search for dentist and let's get 20 results. So we submit it. Okay, your response has been recorded. Very nice. Let's go back to the canvas. So this step is done. So now let's go here and we'll execute this step. So you can see it says executing node, and we wait a little while and the results should come through. Let me do a thing while we wait. I'm gonna go here into Apify and then we look at runs. And if we go here, we can see that like this thing is actually working right now. And we can see how much this is costing me, how long this is taking. It says finished scraping because we set max results and I requested only 20 results. Let's go back. So we see that completed, and we can see that like this is the output that is given to us from Apify. So this output doesn't contain the actual data we want. It just contains data about the scraping run as a whole. So now I need to execute this step. And by executing this step, now we've actually downloaded all the data from that scraping run. Now, as you can see here, we could take this and we could just write it out to a CSV, but there's all sorts of stuff that we don't necessarily need in our output CSV, like a Google Food URL. I have no idea what that is. Opening hours, I don't really care about that either. Or people also search, review tags, etc. So I have this Python script, which I'm not going to explain what it does, but it basically just cleans it up and only gets the contact relevant information. So let me execute that. And now we see that like for this same lady, this doctor, we just have the contact relevant information. And then finally we go here and I just run this step, and now we get a CSV. Let me download it and then open it up. Okay, so there we go. We got a list of 20 dentists and orthodontists. I forget if I did both. In Evanston, Illinois, which happens to be a very rich market in which one of you should start a local newsletter. All right, so that's the full workflow. If you want to use this workflow yourself, go down to the description below, and then there's a link to an article in which I have all of this in a fully explained in a full tutorial in case you missed anything. And I also have the workflow as a JSON available. So download that JSON, then go here, click create workflow, click these 3 points, click import from file, and then import that workflow. And it'll all show up here. The only step you'll need to do is go through that Apify credentials creation, which I had mentioned. And so that's that. Let me explain a little bit about how we can improve this. So if we go over here and look at the CSV we just downloaded, we'll see first that a lot of these doctors, these dentists, they don't have emails available. And the website seems to go to this place, North Shore, which is some kind of chain. And yeah, a lot of them don't have other socials available. So a way that we can build on this to do even better is we could do some enrichment. So starting with this information, we could add on some more steps to this workflow to find the contact information of some of these doctors for whom we just have phone numbers. And for some of these sort of chain companies, which may be a hospital or some like big company, the right person to contact at that company may not necessarily be the dentist, because maybe they just do their dental stuff and they're part of a big chain, and there's some marketing person at that company who's the real person you should be contacting. But if you do this Google Maps search, you're not going to find that marketing person by Google Maps. However, with some enrichment that we're going to do in future videos, I'll show you how to get that marketing person's email too. So that's the direction we're going to keep going in. Again, in the description below, you can get this article. You can look at the newsletter database, got a lot of materials. Sign up and you'll be sure to hear about the next video. Oh yeah, and like and subscribe. I am now a YouTuber, so I have to say that. Like and subscribe. Thank you.